Windermere in Woodinville, joined with Dan Mellis with Nexa Mortgage. I'm actually here at my office today in Woodinville, Washington, and Dan is in Renton. And we are going to talk all things real estate. We're going to get into, for sellers, the how many properties actually get under contract the first couple of weeks on the market. We're going to stretch that out to 8 weeks and see how dire the consequences are of not getting off the market within the first 2 weeks. And then we're also going to talk about how much it costs sellers if they don't, each week that they're on the market, how much price per square foot that's going to cost them. So as they stay on the market longer, as they linger on the market. So there you have it. How you doing, Dan?
Very good, Kat. And then we're going to look at you put together some super stats this week, looking at the percentage of homes that are under market or that get sold week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Yes.
So there's two sides of the coin. How much it's going to cost sellers, but how much the buyers are going to save. So we're going to be looking at both sides of that coin.
That's right. Yep. Because and for buyers, I mean, it's important to know that only a few percent of homes are getting sold, in that weeks 5 through 8. And so sellers are going to be very anxious to see an offer. So I think really good information for both sellers and buyers here, as Dan just pointed out. Okay, so what do you want to put up first, Dan?
Well, let's take a look at what we were just talking about. Oh, hang on. I don't know why I'm getting some. There we go. Okay.
So the first thing is, market time does cost sellers money. So the longer a home sits on the market, the less price per square foot a seller actually gets for it on average, right? So we took a look at properties listed between July and December of last year. And these are single family residential, not new construction, not attached, and not condos or manufactured, just literally single family homes in King County. And this was the breakdown. So, if you sat on the market an extra week, so 8 to 14 days, that's cost the seller 5.4% on average. So, and that equates to, if you're considering the average price of a home in King County is over $1 million, that equates to over 55. Is that right? 65. That equates to over $65,000. So, if you're on the market just an extra week, right? So the idea would be to get off the market the first week because you're going to get the most price per square foot. So if you're on the market 15 to 30 days, so that, kind of that 3 to 4 week bucket, it's going to cost you 11.2% total. So on average, sellers that are under contract within 3 to 4 weeks are getting 11.2% less for their homes than those that sold the first week on the market. And part of those that sold the first week are going to be multiple offers, right? But irregardless, that's what the stats show. And this is the latter part of last year, so not as many multiple offers affecting this data. So, and if you got under contract within a second month on the market, so you missed the first 30 days, and now you're under contract the second month on the market, you're going to get 13.9% less on average in King County. At least that's what happened the last half of last year. So 13.9% less, which equates to, over $160,000 based on the average purchase price in King County. And if you are on the market 3 on the third month, so 61 to 120 days, so months 3 and 4 on the market, so you missed the first 60 days, that's going to cost you an extra 17.5%. And so that's well over $200,000. It's really, really, really imperative to price the property right and get it off the market in the first week or two. And we're going to show you those numbers, what percentage of sellers actually do get off the market in the first, second, third weeks, all the way up to 8 weeks on the market. So this is going to be some interesting data. But this is just a chart that shows you what market time costs the seller. And this is based average price per square foot. So what do you think? Should we take a look at King County, what that looks like for King County?
Yeah, definitely. But before I do, I just want to kind of take a look at and really approach it from a buyer's perspective real quick. Because let's say you don't have a lot of down payment money, right? And you're not likely to be in a bidding war because you can't afford to be in a bidding war, right? And so if you're buying a house and you're looking after the first 2 weeks, let's say in the 15 to 30 day bucket or over 30 days, you're going to run into sellers that are more accommodative. Yeah, I think statistically they're more accommodative to be able to work with a buyer that might be working with, let's say, a down payment assistance program, zero down, something that would normally not be an attractive offer if you're looking at a house in the first 0 to 7 days, might become a very attractive offer on day 31, right? So
Right.
where you have buyers or sellers that are much more
When you're
willing
not competing, right? So if you're looking at homes that have been on the market more than maybe 8 or 14 days on the market, they may not have reduced price much, but they're going to be a lot more amenable to considering having, allowing you to have an inspection, maybe low down payment situation, a lower earnest money, different, they're going to be a little bit looser with the terms than they would be if you're competing day 0 through 7, right? So the first week on the market when they may be more likely to receive more than one offer. And even week 2, it does happen fairly frequently that you'll get multiple offers on a property. Maybe you've missed the offer review date, but you might wind up with a couple of buyers that are still competing. So my advice to buyers is if they're looking to potentially be able to negotiate, then you're going to be looking at properties that have probably been on the market more than 2 weeks. And if you really want, better negotiating power, then you're looking 30 to 60 days or more on the market to allow you to put yourself in a better position of actually negotiating with the seller for things that maybe you need done because of, some items in the inspection, or maybe you need some down payment assistance, like what Dana's saying, or you need closing costs covered, right? So, not only maybe you can get a price concession because they've been on the market for a couple of months, but maybe you can also get, maybe they can do an interest rate buy down, a temporary interest rate buy down to 2-1 buy down, or cover some closing costs as well to allow you to kind of save your cash back for a rainy day. So
that's right. That's right. Well, let's take a look at some of these stats because they're pretty interesting. And we've got the first 8 weeks, and then there is sort of a demarcation point, as you can see from the previous stat, that after 30 days, you've got a big drop really the first 2 weeks.
It's actually, if you don't get off the market within the first 2 weeks in King County, it just gets really dire. So 55% of sellers got under contract within the first week on the market. Only 10% got under contract the second week on the market. And by the third week, it was only 5%. And by the fourth week, it was 3%. And after then, it's 2%, 2%, 1.4%, and 1.4% for weeks 5 through 8. And that's almost meaningless. It's just almost nobody's getting under contract after the first couple of weeks on the market. And so what I did was I took sellers, because I wanted the most recent data. I took sellers that listed between January 1st of this year and February 12th. And I took that same bucket of sellers and I took a look at who got sold within the first 0 to 7 days, who got sold within 8 to 14 days. And that's how we attained this data. And so you can see that if you miss that first 2 weeks on the market, it just gets dire very quickly. And so for buyers, you can see that sellers aren't really going to get much for offers after they've been on the market the first 2 weeks.
That's right. That's right. And so, 70 in King County, 73% of homes were sold in the first 4 weeks. And so you've got basically 1/4 of the homes that go on the market after 4 weeks are still available. So it's a nice pool of homes to be able to look at. And we took a look at King County, and let me get Snohomish County up here. And in Snohomish County, almost the same numbers, right? 70% after 4 weeks were under contract.
Yeah, it's very similar. 49% in the first week, and again 10% for the second week, and it's 8% the third week in Snohomish County, and then down to 3% the fourth week. And then after that, it's 3, 3, 3, and 1. It's pretty devastating. So again, I try to let my sellers know that it's very important to get your house, prepared well right from the start and price it right to get it under contract those first couple of weeks. But the word to the buyer is listen, hey, if the seller hasn't gotten their house under contract in that first couple of weeks, then it's an opportunity for the buyer. So to actually be able to negotiate a little bit more than maybe they would for a house that's been on the market less than 14 days. So I think it just shows you that you can look at homes that haven't necessarily been on the market 60 days, but you can still look at homes that have been on the market 3 weeks and have some bargaining power.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's go here to Pierce County. We'll just whip through some of these counties pretty quick, but you can kind of see the statistics are reasonably close, right? Percentage of houses that get sold in the first 4 weeks. Let's just say.
It's very similar. King and Snohomish are extremely similar. Pierce County is a little less, a little bit less vigorous seller's market right now. And so they're 38% got under contract the first 7 days. And that was a little larger second week, 13% when the second week got under contract. So it's a little less dramatic, but still by week 4, you're down to less than 4% getting under contract per week. And it starts to, really look really sad for the sellers. And so again, but that's a cue for buyers. Good opportunity to come in and maybe ask for some concessions. Again, having closing costs covered, maybe asking the seller for a 2-1 buy down. It's a good way to go to lower your payment for the first couple of years, given that interest rates are kind of too high for most of us anyway. So it can be a real buying opportunity. And all you got to do is watch for that days on market. Right. And some sellers may start to reduce price. If they haven't reduced price recently, they may be amenable to you coming in a little bit lower and then asking for some concessions.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a quick look over at Mason.
And Mason is a little less populous county. Their market is not quite as rigorous or as vigorous as the more metropolitan areas around Seattle. So it's a little less meaningful to jump in there and try to get a deal later on down the road. I think sellers probably are holding their price a little bit more on Mason County, just expecting that market time to be longer. I mean, they had 19% get under contract in the first 7 days and 11% the second week. And it kind of stays around 5 or 6% for some weeks to come. So I think that, they're probably not looking at doing price reductions quite as soon as the sellers in the metropolitan area would be my guess.
And let's see here. If we go over we'll just finish up the last.
Skagit acts a lot more like, a little bit more like the metropolitan area. 34% of sellers got under contract the first 7 days on the market, and they had 10% the second week and 10% the third week as well got under contract both of those weeks. So still within the first 4 weeks, what did we get, Dan? 57% under contract.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't drop off as severely as it does in King and Snohomish counties, but it does get around that 4% range for weeks 5, 6, 7, and 8 for sellers to get under contract. So again, those sellers are going to be motivated by, getting an offer. So, in Skagit County, you're in the same situation. You would be in Snohomish or King County, taking a look at those homes that have been on the market more than 2 to 4 weeks to get to negotiate a little better for yourself.
Yep. And then just to top it off, we'll go to Kitsap.
And Kitsap, very similar to Skagit, 38% of sellers got under contract the first 7 days, with 14% the second week on the market getting under contract. And then it dropping off again to less than 4% per week, weeks 5 through 8. So a total of 63% of sellers got under contract within the first 4 weeks on the market. So in Kitsap also, you start looking at properties that have been on the market 2 to 4 weeks or longer. And a buyer is going to be in a much better position to ask for 2-1 buy down, the seller to cover some closing costs, a price reduction, to be able to have their own inspection. So, and to obviously include financing contingencies. You should be able to do that almost from the get-go in Kitsap County. Some of the other more vigorous counties for sellers markets are not as amenable to including a financing contingency or an inspection contingency. If you work with me, though, you're gonna have both. So,
Well,
anyway.
the other thing that we got this week, really interesting material on inter-year appreciation. And really, if you take a look at most of the appreciation that happens in the markets happens between the first half of the year, right? From January.
So it happens between, this data is reflective of January data and May data. So what that really is reflecting is December negotiations versus April negotiations. And so that's literally, let's face it, that's 4 months apart.
Right.
And the majority of the appreciation happens between that December timeframe and that April timeframe. So when we're looking at trying to time the market, or for sellers when they want to sell, what's the best time to sell? If you can hit that March-April timeframe, you're going to be doing really, really well. For buyers, if you can actually find something that you like in December, which is really tough because not as many homes are coming on the market, that's definitely a better time to buy. And then after April, May, the market can kind of top out or level off a little bit. And then it will start to kind of inch down through mid to late summer. And then into fall, it'll come down usually a little bit more, maybe with a little bump in October if rates come down or something. But typically it continues to kind of slide. And at the end of the year, usually it's a little bit higher than where it was at the beginning of the previous year. So, and there you go. There's your appreciation. So anyway, so it's, you can see consistently there's a 14.7% difference between December negotiations, the negotiated final price per square foot, versus the April negotiations. And so you can almost get a 15% bump as a seller if you can wait just a couple of months. So time that market.
There you go. And then just real quick, we've got a couple of our regular stats by Kat. For King and Snohomish County, just a quick look at how the pulse of the market is going.
Yeah, so 50% of sellers got under contract in the first 7 days on the market if they listed their home between March 23rd and March 29th. And we had 59% of sellers get under contract the first 2 weeks on the market if they listed their home between March 9th and March 22nd. 38, 39, what's that say? 38%? What's that say? Dan, help me. That's
39%, Kat.
39% of sellers set offer review dates. 44% of sellers in King County actually received multiple offers over the last 7 days. And there's 1.0 month supply of inventory, and that has remained very consistent for the past few weeks in King County.
Cool.
So King County staying about the same. And then it's 44% of sellers in Snohomish County got under contract in the first 7 days on the market if they listed their home between March 23rd and March 29th. And 59% of sellers got under contract in Snohomish County within the first 2 weeks on the market if they listed their home between March 9th and March 22nd. And only 28% of sellers set offer review dates in Snohomish County last week. So that's down a little bit. And we had 34% of sellers in Snohomish County received multiple offers over the past 7 days. So Snohomish County is still experiencing quite a few multiple offers, even though offer review dates are down a bit. And Snohomish County has ticked back with their month supply of inventory to 0.9 months. So their inventory tightened a tad. So there you go.
There you go. Oh, goodness. Well, that was a quick look-see at the markets, huh?
Yes. Yep. Things are still hanging in there. Numbers are ticking back slightly. Overall, the 7-day data is coming down just a tad for most of the counties, not all of them, but for the main counties, Snohomish and King County, the most populous counties, the 7 and 14-day data have ticked back a tad. And I think that's because interest rates are going up and there's some perceived investor risk out there, right, because of tariffs and other, political decisions that are being made right now, regardless of what affiliation you are politically, it's causing some unrest.
Yep.
So,
No question about that. Oh,
right.
goodness. Well, it's interesting. This is the first time we've done our live stream from the offices of Windermere in Woodinville.
Yes, that's right.
Coming to us from your office.
Straight from the office.
Straight from the office. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. That's all I've got for this week. I mean, there's so much chaos going on in the markets. I think I'd like to have it settle down, and we can take a look at all that stuff next week.
It's a lot of nonsense, a lot of nonsensical data out there right now, just because it's been fluctuating so violently. I hate to use that word, but
it really has.
The interest rates have been up and down, up and down, up and down, right, Dan?
That's right. I don't really remember seeing anything like this before. So it's pretty crazy. But anyway, we'll end it there. And I appreciate your time. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
We'll talk with you soon.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
All righty. Bye-bye.